Adana wiped the sweat from her forehead as she polished the mahogany conference table in the 40th floor boardroom of Sterling Industries, one of New York's most prestigious investment firms. At 34 years old, she had been working as a housekeeper for the company for 8 years, invisible to most of the executives who passed her in the hallways. Born in Lagos, Nigeria, Adana had immigrated to the United States 15 years ago with nothing but a dream and her younger brother Emeka, who is now studying computer science at Columbia University. She had worked multiple cleaning jobs to pay for his education, sacrificing her own aspirations of becoming an accountant back home. Despite her circumstances, Adana had never lost her sharp mind for numbers. She had graduated top of her class from the University of Lagos with a degree in mathematics before life circumstances forced her to leave Nigeria. In America, however, her foreign credentials meant nothing, and she found herself starting over in the most humbling way possible. Every morning at 5 a.m., Adana arrived at Sterling Industries to clean the offices before the executives arrived. She had developed a routine over the years, and her favorite time was cleaning the executive conference rooms because she could overhear the business conversations that fascinated her brilliant mind. On this particular Wednesday morning in October, Adana was cleaning the main boardroom when she noticed something unusual. Papers were scattered across the table, and multiple laptops were still open with complex financial models displayed on their screens. It was clear that the executive team had been working late into the night on something urgent. As she carefully dusted around the papers, trying not to disturb anything, her eyes caught sight of the numbers on one of the laptop screens. It was a derivatives trading model, and something immediately struck her as wrong. The risk calculation seemed off by several decimal places. Adana paused, setting down her cleaning cloth. She had studied similar models during her university years and had always been exceptionally gifted at spotting mathematical errors. She looked closer at the screen, her trained eye quickly identifying the problem. The model was calculating currency exchange risks for a massive international deal, but the formula was using outdated exchange rates from the previous quarter instead of real-time rates. This seemingly small error was compounding across millions of transactions, creating a potential loss of astronomical proportions. She glanced around the empty boardroom, torn between her place as a housekeeper and her responsibility as someone who could see a disaster unfolding. The numbers on the screen suggested that Sterling Industries was about to lose approximately $200 million due to this miscalculation. Adana knew she should just finish her cleaning and leave. It wasn't her place to interfere with executive decisions. But the mathematician in her couldn't ignore what she was seeing. This wasn't just a business decision gone wrong. This was a simple mathematical error that could bankrupt the company and cost thousands of people their jobs. She looked at the papers scattered across the table and recognized the signatures at the bottom. This deal was scheduled to be executed today at market opening, in less than 4 hours. Her hands trembling slightly, Adana pulled out her phone and took a photo of the error on the laptop screen. She wasn't sure what she would do with it, but she knew she had to document what she was seeing. As she continued cleaning, she heard footsteps approaching the boardroom. CEO Jonathan Sterling was arriving earlier than usual, talking animatedly on his phone about finalizing the morning's transactions. "Yes, I understand the timeline is tight," she heard him saying as he approached. "But we've run the models a dozen times. The risk assessment is solid. We're moving forward as planned." Adana's heart raced. She quickly finished wiping down the table and gathered her cleaning supplies, but Jonathan was already entering the room. "Oh, Adana," he said, briefly looking up from his phone call. "Good morning. Sorry, I'll be out of your way in just a moment." Jonathan Sterling was 48 years old and had built Sterling Industries from a small family investment firm into a Wall Street powerhouse. He was known for being brilliant, demanding, and completely focused on results. In 8 years of working for the company, Adana had probably exchanged fewer than 50 words with him. "Actually, sir," Adana said quietly, her voice barely above a whisper. Could I speak with you for just one moment?" Jonathan paused his phone conversation and looked at her with surprise. "I'm sorry, what?" Adana felt her face burning with embarrassment, but she pressed on. "It's about the numbers on your computer screen, sir. I think there might be an error." Jonathan stared at her for a long moment, clearly confused. An error? Adana, I appreciate your concern, but these are complex financial models that. The exchange rates are from last quarter, not current rates, Adana interrupted, her voice growing slightly stronger. The model is using September data for October transactions. The currency fluctuations over the past month are significant enough to affect your risk calculations by approximately 12%. Jonathan slowly ended his phone call without saying goodbye, his full attention now focused on the woman standing before him with a dust cloth in her hands. How do you know about exchange rates? He asked quietly. I studied mathematics at university, sir. In Nigeria. I understand these types of models. Jonathan walked over to his laptop and looked at the screen Adana had been studying. He stared at the numbers for a long moment, then grabbed his phone and called his head of risk management. David, I need you in the boardrooms immediately. Bring the currency data for the Hartwell deal. Yes, I know it's early. No, this can't wait. While they waited, Jonathan turned back to Adana. Show me exactly what you're seeing. With her heart pounding, Adana approached the laptop and pointed to specific cells in the spreadsheet. Here, sir. These exchange rates are from September 15th, but today's rates are significantly different. The euro has strengthened by 1.8%, and the yen has weakened by 2.3% since then. When you multiply those differences across the volume of transactions in your model. She paused, quickly calculating in her head. The risk exposure increases from 4.2% to approximately 16.7%. Based on the transaction volume, that translates to potential losses of roughly $200 million. Jonathan stood in stunned silence as Adana's words sank in. 5 minutes later, David Martinez, the head of risk management, burst into the room with his laptop and a stack of papers. Jonathan, what's the emergency? We're supposed to execute in 3 hours. David, check the exchange rates in the Hartwell model. Specifically, when were they last updated? David opened his laptop and pulled up the model. After a few minutes of checking, his face went pale. Oh my God. These rates are from our September 15th backup file. How did this happen? That's exactly what I want to know, Jonathan said grimly. But first, I want you to run the calculations with current exchange rates. All of them. For the next hour, Adana watched as David and 2 other executives who had been called in frantically reworked their models. The final numbers confirmed exactly what Adana had calculated in her head in less than 2 minutes. We would have lost everything, David said, his voice shaky. The deal would have bankrupted us. Jonathan looked at Adana, who had been standing quietly in the corner, still holding her cleaning supplies. Adana, you just saved this company. You saved my company. I was just doing what anyone would do, sir. No, Jonathan said firmly. Most people would have minded their own business. You chose to speak up, even though it wasn't your place. Even though you risked your job to do it. I couldn't let the company fail when I knew how to prevent it, Adana replied simply. Jonathan stared at her for a long moment, then made a decision that would change both of their lives forever. Adana, I need to ask you something, and I want you to answer honestly, Jonathan said, dismissing the other executives from the room. What exactly was your education in Nigeria? I have a bachelor's degree in mathematics from the University of Lagos, sir. I graduated summa cum laude with a focus on statistical analysis and financial modeling. Jonathan sat down heavily in one of the leather chairs. And you've been cleaning our offices for 8 years. Yes, sir. My credentials weren't recognized here, and I needed to work immediately to support my brother's education. Your brother? Emeka. He's finishing his master's in computer science at Columbia. I've been paying his tuition and living expenses. Jonathan was quiet for a moment, processing this information. Adana, would you be willing to take some tests? Financial modeling assessments, mathematical reasoning, that sort of thing? If you think it would be helpful, sir. I think it might be very helpful indeed. That afternoon, Jonathan arranged for Adana to meet with the head of Sterling's quantitative analysis team. Dr. Rebecca Chun had a PhD from MIT and was known as one of the most brilliant financial mathematicians on Wall Street. Jonathan, what exactly am I supposed to be testing here? Rebecca asked when she saw Adana enter her office. Her mathematical abilities, specifically related to financial modeling and risk assessment. Rebecca looked skeptical but agreed to administer a series of tests that were typically given to PhD candidates applying for senior analyst positions at the firm. 3 hours later, Rebecca called Jonathan's office, her voice filled with disbelief. "Jonathan, you need to see these results." "That bad? That extraordinary?" "She scored higher than anyone I've ever tested. Higher than most of our senior partners scored when they were starting out." "Are you serious?" "Jonathan, this woman has a mathematical intuition that's off the charts. She solved complex derivative problems in her head that most people need computers for." "Where did you find her?" "She's been cleaning our offices for 8 years." The silence on the other end of the phone lasted nearly 30 seconds. "We need to talk," Rebecca said finally. The next morning, Jonathan called Adana into his office. She arrived still wearing her housekeeper's uniform, uncertain what to expect. "Adana, I have a proposition for you. But first, I want to apologize." "Apologize, sir?" "For 8 years, we've had one of the most talented financial minds I've ever encountered cleaning our floors, and we never bothered to ask about your background or capabilities. That's on me, and it's unacceptable." Adana didn't know what to say. "I want to offer you a position as a junior analyst in our risk management division. The starting salary would be $120,000 per year, plus bonuses based on performance." Adana felt dizzy. "Sir, I don't understand. You saved us $200 million yesterday. That's not luck. That's exceptional skill. I want you to use that skill for Sterling Industries, but as an analyst, not as a housekeeper." "But sir, I don't have American credentials. I don't have an MBA from a prestigious school." "Adana, yesterday you outperformed our entire risk management team. You saw in minutes what they missed after weeks of analysis. I don't care about credentials. I care about results." Adana sat in stunned silence. "There's one condition," Jonathan continued. "You'll need to complete some additional coursework to familiarize yourself with American financial regulations and practices. Sterling will pay for it, of course, and you can do it while working." "Mr. Sterling, this is more than I ever dreamed possible. There's something else. I understand you've been supporting your brother's education. Sterling has a scholarship program for family members of employees. If you accept this position, your brother's remaining tuition at Columbia will be covered." Adana began to cry. "Why are you doing this?" "Because 8 years ago, I should have asked you about your background instead of assuming that your job title defined your capabilities. Because yesterday you proved that talent exists everywhere, and it's our responsibility to recognize it." "I accept," Adana said through her tears. "Of course I accept." "Excellent. You start Monday. Rebecca Chun will be your supervisor, and she's excited to work with you." Over the weekend, word spread through Sterling Industries that the housekeeper who had prevented a massive financial disaster had been promoted to analyst. The reactions were mixed. Some employees were inspired by the story and began looking at their support staff with new respect. Others were uncomfortable with the idea that someone could jump from cleaning offices to analyzing multimillion-dollar deals. "This is insane," complained Marcus Webb, a senior analyst who had an MBA from Wharton. "She doesn't have the education or experience for this role." "She has something better," Rebecca Chin replied during a Monday morning staff meeting. "She has intuitive mathematical brilliance and the courage to speak up when she sees problems." "But what about protocol? What about qualifications?" "Marcus, she prevented us from losing $200 million. What more qualification do you need?" Adana's first week as an analyst was challenging. She had to learn new software systems, familiarize herself with American financial regulations, and adapt to the fast-paced environment of high-stakes trading. But her mathematical abilities quickly became apparent to everyone on the team. She could spot patterns in data that others missed, calculate risk probabilities in her head, and identify potential problems before they became disasters. "It's remarkable," Rebecca told Jonathan after Adana's first month. "She approaches problems from angles that never occur to the rest of us. Her insights have already improved our risk assessment accuracy by 15%. And how is she fitting in with the team? Most of the team loves her. She's humble, hardworking, and brilliant. There are a few who resent her rapid promotion, but they're coming around as they see her results. Jonathan nodded. And her coursework? She's completing her regulatory certification faster than anyone I've ever supervised. At this rate, she'll be fully certified within 6 months instead of the usual 12. Good. I want to discuss something with you. I'm thinking about creating a new position for her. What kind of position? Director of Risk Innovation. Someone whose job it is to look at our models with fresh eyes, to spot the errors that the rest of us miss because we're too close to the problems. Rebecca smiled. That's perfect for her. She has a gift for seeing what others overlook. 6 months after starting as an analyst, Adana was promoted to Director of Risk Innovation, making her one of the youngest directors in Sterling's history. Her story had begun to attract attention from financial media, and she had been invited to speak at several industry conferences. I never expected this, she told Jonathan during one of their monthly check-ins. A year ago, I was cleaning these offices and dreaming about maybe one day going back to school. And now you're revolutionizing how we approach risk management, Jonathan replied. You've saved us from 3 more potential disasters in the past 6 months. I just see patterns that others miss. Maybe because I approach problems differently. That's exactly why you're so valuable. You weren't trained to think inside the box, so you naturally think outside of it. Mr. Sterling, can I ask you something? Of course. Why did you take such a big risk on me? You could have just given me a bonus and continued as before. Jonathan leaned back in his chair. Because I realized that the biggest risk would have been not taking a chance on you. Talent like yours is rare, Adana. When you find it, you have to nurture it, regardless of where you discover it. 1 year after her promotion to analyst, Adana was featured on the cover of Financial Times with a headline From Housekeeper to Wall Street Innovator, the Adana success story. The article detailed how her unconventional background had led to revolutionary changes in risk assessment methodology at Sterling Industries. The traditional path to Wall Street success typically involves elite universities and privileged connections, the article read. Adana's story challenges everything we think we know about who belongs in high finance. The publicity brought unexpected opportunities. Harvard Business School invited her to guest lecture on innovative risk assessment. Goldman Sachs and Morgan Stanley both tried to recruit her with lucrative offers. I'm flattered by the attention, Adana told Jonathan. But I want to stay at Sterling. This company took a chance on me when no one else would. I appreciate your loyalty, but I want you to seriously consider these opportunities. You shouldn't limit yourself because of gratitude. It's not just gratitude, Mr. Sterling. I believe we're building something special here. Something that could change how the entire industry thinks about talent and opportunity. Jonathan smiled. Actually, I wanted to talk to you about that. I have a proposal. What kind of proposal? I want to start a new division within Sterling, the Emerging Talent Initiative. Its mission would be to identify exceptional individuals who have been overlooked by traditional recruitment methods. Adana's eyes lit up. You mean looking for talent in unexpected places? Exactly. Immigrants, people without traditional credentials, individuals who are working below their potential. You would head this initiative. Me? But I've only been an analyst for a year. Adana, you've saved this company over $300 million in the past year. You've revolutionized our risk assessment methods. And most importantly, you understand what it's like to be overlooked despite having exceptional abilities. Adana was quiet for a moment, considering the implications. What would this division actually do? Several things. First, we'd partner with community colleges and immigrant service organizations to identify mathematically gifted individuals. Second, we'd create internship and apprenticeship programs that focus on ability rather than pedigree. Third, we'd develop new assessment methods that can identify talent regardless of someone's educational background. This could really make a difference, Adana said thoughtfully. It could change lives. Just like your life was changed. I accept. The Emerging Talent Initiative launched 6 months later with Adana as its director. She had a team of 5 recruiters and a budget of $2 million to identify and develop overlooked talent. Their first success story was Carlos Mendoza, a janitor at a tech company in Silicon Valley who had been teaching himself programming in his spare time. Adana's team discovered that he had developed several innovative algorithms that could improve trading efficiency. "Carlos reminds me of myself," Adana told her team during a recruitment meeting. "Brilliant mind, wrong job title." They brought Carlos to New York, put him through an intensive 6-month training program, and he became one of Sterling's most effective algorithmic traders. Their second recruit was Fatima al-Rashid, a Syrian refugee who had been working as a seamstress in Detroit despite having an engineering degree from Damascus University. She joined Sterling's infrastructure technology team and quickly became known for her innovative solutions to data processing challenges. "We're not just changing individual lives," Adana explained to a conference of financial industry executives. "We're tapping into a massive pool of underutilized talent that could revolutionize our entire sector." The industry took notice. Within 2 years, 6 major financial firms had launched similar programs based on Sterling's model. "You've started a movement," Rebecca Chin told Adana. "Investment banks across the country are rethinking their recruitment strategies." "Good," Adana replied. "There are too many brilliant people working jobs that don't challenge them, just because they don't fit the traditional mold." The success of the Emerging Talent Initiative led to another unexpected development. Adana received a call from the White House. "Ms. Adana, this is Sarah Martinez from the Office of Economic Policy. The President would like to meet with you to discuss your work on economic inclusion." "The President wants to meet with me?" "Your Emerging Talent Initiative has become a model for economic development programs nationwide. The President is interested in scaling similar approaches at the federal level." 2 weeks later, Adana found herself in the Oval Office, explaining to the President how identifying overlooked talent could strengthen the American economy. "What you've done at Sterling Industries is exactly the kind of innovation we need," the President told her. "You've proven that talent exists everywhere. We just need better systems for finding and developing it." "Thank you, Mr. President. I believe that when we give people opportunities to reach their potential, everyone benefits. I'd like to offer you a position as Special Advisor on Economic Inclusion. You would help develop national programs based on your model at Sterling." Adana was honored but hesitant. "Mr. President, I'm grateful for the offer, but I'm not sure I'm ready to leave Sterling Industries." "Think about it," the President said. "You could impact millions of lives instead of hundreds." That evening, Adana called her brother Emeka, who had graduated from Columbia and was now working as a software engineer at Google. "Sister, this is incredible," he said. "From cleaning offices to advising the President in just 3 years." "It feels surreal," Adana admitted. "But I'm torn about the offer." "Why?" "Sterling Industries took a chance on me when no one else would. Mr. Sterling could have just given me a bonus and forgotten about me, but instead, he completely changed my life. And now you have the chance to change millions of other lives," Emeka pointed out. "Isn't that what Mr. Sterling would want?" Adana knew her brother was right. The next day, she scheduled a meeting with Jonathan to discuss the President's offer. "This is an incredible opportunity," Jonathan told her. "You have to take it. But what about the Emerging Talent Initiative? What about Sterling?" "Adana, the best thing you can do for Sterling Industries is to take these principles nationwide. We'll continue the program here, but you can create systemic change across the entire country." "Are you sure?" "I'm sure. 3 years ago, you saved my company by speaking up when you could have stayed silent. Now you can save countless other talented individuals by creating opportunities they never thought possible." Adana smiled. "You know, when I took that photo of the error on your laptop screen, I never imagined it would lead to this." "That's the thing about courage," Jonathan replied. "You never know where it will take you, but it always leads somewhere better than where you started." 2 years later, Adana stood before a joint session of Congress, presenting the annual report on the National Emerging Talent Initiative. As Special Advisor on Economic Inclusion, she had helped launch programs that had identified and developed over 10,000 overlooked talents across the country. The results speak for themselves. she told the assembled lawmakers. Our programs have achieved a 94% job placement rate, with average salary increases of 300% for participants. More importantly, we've proven that talent exists in every community, every background, every economic level. The program had expanded beyond finance into technology, healthcare, engineering, and education. Former janitors were now leading software development teams. Immigrants with foreign degrees were practicing medicine and engineering again. High school dropouts who had been working minimum wage jobs were becoming cybersecurity experts. The economic impact has been substantial, Adana continued. Participants in our programs have contributed over $2 billion in increased tax revenue while reducing dependence on social services by 67%. After her presentation, Adana was approached by Senator Maria Rodriguez, who chaired the Committee on Economic Development. Ms. Adana, your work has been transformative. I wanted to discuss expanding the program internationally. Internationally, we've received requests from 12 countries interested in implementing similar programs. The European Union wants to partner with us on a pilot program. That's exciting, but also overwhelming. There's something else, Senator Rodriguez continued. The Nobel Committee has reached out. They're considering a special recognition for your work on economic inclusion. Adana was speechless. But before we get ahead of ourselves, the senator smiled. There's someone here who wants to see you. She gestured toward the back of the chamber, where Jonathan Sterling was standing with a proud smile on his face. Mr. Sterling, Adana exclaimed, rushing over to embrace her former boss. What are you doing here? I wouldn't miss this for the world. I wanted to see how far you've come since that morning in the boardroom. I still can't believe any of this is real. Adana, do you know what the most remarkable thing about your story is?
What?
It's not that you went from housekeeper to presidential advisor. It's that you never forgot where you came from or why this work matters. They walked together through the Capitol building, catching up on the past 2 years. How's the Emerging Talent Initiative at Sterling? Adana asked. Thriving. We've hired 47 people through the program, and they consistently outperform our traditional hires. More importantly, other companies have started copying our approach. And how's your new director of risk innovation? Jonathan laughed. Maria Santos is excellent, but she's the first to admit she's not you. No one will ever be you. They paused at a window overlooking the Washington Mall, where thousands of tourists were visiting the monuments. Adana, can I ask you something? Of course. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if you hadn't spoken up that morning? Adana thought for a moment. Sometimes. But I've learned that life is shaped by the moments when we choose courage over comfort. That's beautifully put. I've also learned that one person's willingness to take a risk on someone else can change everything. You didn't have to promote me, Mr. Sterling. You could have given me a bonus and moved on. But then we would have missed out on everything you've accomplished. And I would have missed out on discovering what I was capable of. That evening, Adana returned to her apartment in Washington, D.C. It was a far cry from the small studio she had shared with her brother when she first arrived in America, but she kept it modestly furnished as a reminder of where she had started. She called Emeka, who was now married and working as a senior engineer at a startup in San Francisco. Sister, I saw your presentation on C-SPAN today. Mom and Dad would be so proud. I hope so. Sometimes I think about them and wonder if they can see how far we've come. Of course they can see. They sacrificed everything to give us the foundation for education. Now look what you've built on that foundation. We built it together, Emeka. I couldn't have done any of this without knowing you were safe and pursuing your dreams. And now thousands of other families are getting the same chance we got. After they hung up, Adana sat at her desk and began working on her next proposal, a global initiative to identify and develop talent in refugee communities around the world. Her phone rang. It was Jonathan. I hope you don't mind me calling so late, but I just heard some news. What news? The Nobel Committee made their decision. Congratulations, Dr. Adana. Doctor? I don't have a doctorate. You do now. Princeton awarded you an honorary PhD in economics this afternoon, based on your contributions to economic development theory. Adana sat down heavily. A Nobel Prize? For economic sciences. Specifically for your work on inclusive talent development as a driver of economic growth. I can't, this is impossible. Adana, 5 years ago you were cleaning boardrooms. Today you're being recognized as one of the world's leading economic innovators. If that's not proof that anything is possible, I don't know what is. 6 months later, Adana stood at the podium in Stockholm, accepting the Nobel Prize in Economic Sciences. In the audience sat Jonathan Sterling, her brother Emeka, and dozens of individuals whose lives had been transformed by the programs she had created. "This award doesn't belong to me alone," she said in her acceptance speech. "It belongs to every person who has been overlooked, underestimated, or dismissed because they didn't fit someone else's definition of potential." She paused, looking out at the distinguished audience. 5 years ago, I was cleaning offices and hoping for a chance to prove myself. Today, I stand here not because I was special, but because someone was willing to look beyond my job title and see my capabilities. The lesson of my story is not that I was uniquely talented. The lesson is that talent exists everywhere, in our cleaning staff, in our service workers, in our immigrant communities, in every person whose society has written off as ordinary. The greatest untapped resource in our global economy is not oil or technology or capital. It's human potential. When we learn to recognize and develop that potential, regardless of where we find it, we don't just change individual lives, we transform entire societies. As she concluded her speech, the audience rose in thunderous applause. But Adana's eyes found Jonathan Sterling in the crowd, and she mouthed 2 words. "Thank you." He smiled and mouthed back, "Thank you." Later, at the Nobel banquet, a young woman approached Adana. She was wearing a server's uniform. "Ms. Adana, I know I shouldn't interrupt, but I wanted to tell you something." "Please, what is it?" "I'm studying engineering at Stockholm University while working here to pay for school. Your story gives me hope that someday someone will see past my job and recognize my potential." Adana took the young woman's hands. "What's your name?" "Ingrid." "Ingrid, don't wait for someone else to recognize your potential. Speak up when you see problems that need solving. Take chances when opportunities arise. Your moment will come." "How do you know?" "Because talent finds a way. It always finds a way." As Adana returned to her table, she reflected on the incredible journey that had brought her to this moment. It had started with a simple choice, the choice to speak up when she could have stayed silent, to care about something beyond her own immediate responsibilities. Now, her programs had helped over 50,000 people worldwide discover and develop their hidden talents. Former housekeepers were running companies.